The Mont Blanc pen is on the nightstand, still there, right where it's been for 6 years. I don't move it, I don't use it. It sits with the cap on, the gold clip catching whatever light comes through the curtain, and sometimes, like right now, 11 at night, house completely quiet, I pick it up and I turn it over in my fingers. M.A.H. engraved, Margaret Ann Holloway. The economics department gave it to me in 1992 when economic costs of rural health policy failures came out. They had a small reception, cake. Someone brought wine from the faculty club. I gave a short speech about gratitude, and then I set the pen down on the podium and forgot to pick it up, and had to walk back into the empty room to get it. And everyone laughed because that was exactly the kind of thing I did. Always moving forward too fast. Already thinking about the next sentence, the next paper, the next argument. That was me, Margaret Holloway. The economist who could hold 6 variables in her head simultaneously and tell you which one would collapse first under stress. I can't hold a single variable right now. I've been sitting on the edge of this single bed. It's the guest room, used to be the guest room. I don't know what to call it anymore, for 40 minutes, and I still haven't figured out whether I remembered to take my melatonin. The bottle is right there on the nightstand. I can see it. The melatonin, not the other thing. The other thing has been gone for 6 years, 4 months, and roughly 11 days. Not that I count. Except I do. Of course I do. I count everything. It's what I was trained to do. Let me tell you about the paper from the New England Journal of Medicine, January 1980. A letter to the editor by Jane Porter and Herschel Jick. 1 paragraph. It reported that among hospitalized patients given narcotic analgesics, fewer than 1% developed what the authors called reasonably well-documented addiction. No dosage data, no duration data, no methodology section, because it wasn't a study, it was a letter. 11 words from that paragraph became the scientific foundation for one of the largest pharmaceutical frauds in American history. Purdue Pharma cited that paragraph in materials distributed to physicians. Their sales representatives repeated the figure in offices and conference rooms and continuing medical education seminars for years. It was the reason Dr. Philip Carver, orthopedic surgeon at Burlington Medical Center, could look me in the face in September of 2001 and say, "It's different from the old opioids, Dr. Holloway. Controlled release mechanism, very low addiction risk, less than 1%, the research shows." I had read the paper. I'd taught policy analysis for 23 years. I knew how to evaluate a source, and I did not catch it. That is the part I still can't fully reconcile. The Federal Reserve Bank of Boston paid me to find what corporations buried in their numbers. I reviewed FDA approval documents. I tracked drug company lobbying expenditures. I published 47 peer-reviewed articles on health policy economics. I did not catch that the cornerstone of Dr. Carver's assurance was 1 paragraph from a letter to the editor published 21 years earlier. What Purdue Pharma understood is that sophisticated people are the easiest to mislead, not because they're less intelligent, but because they trust their own ability to detect deception. That trust was precisely what made me vulnerable. I believed I would have caught a lie. I didn't catch it. The surgery was September 14, 2001, L4, L5 spinal fusion, Dr. Carver at Burlington Medical Center. I had delayed it for 8 months. I had a book under contract, a deadline with Princeton University Press, and I told myself the pain was manageable until the manuscript was done. It was not manageable. By August I was sitting through faculty meetings with my left leg going numb, grading papers lying on my office floor because the chair was unbearable. I had waited too long. Carver said so after looking at the imaging. The stenosis is more advanced than I'd like for a woman your age. 60 years old. I was 60 years old. He prescribed OxyContin 20 milligrams twice daily for post-surgical pain. He said it would be temporary. He said the controlled release formula was significantly safer than older opioids. He said, this is the sentence I go back to most often, you won't have to worry about the clock, meaning no peak and valley, no counting hours between doses, no anxiety about the next dose. The drug would simply maintain a steady therapeutic level, clean, reliable, predictable. An economist would appreciate that, he said, knowing the inputs, knowing the outputs, no surprises. I went home from the hospital with a prescription for 30 tablets and the confidence of a woman who had spent a career analyzing exactly this kind of pharmaceutical policy decision and found it sound. The first 8 weeks were remarkable. I need to say that plainly because it's important. OxyContin didn't feel like a drug in those first weeks. It felt like the absence of something terrible. The pain that had followed me through every hour of the previous 8 months simply stopped. I slept through the night for the first time in a year. I woke up and the morning didn't begin with negotiating with my own body about whether standing up was worth it. I went back to the manuscript. I wrote 37 pages in the 6 weeks after surgery. My editor called to say she was impressed. I was sharp. I was present. I thought, this is what health feels like. This is what I had before the stenosis stole it. The prescription ran out. I called Carver's office. He renewed it. I asked if the dose should decrease as I healed. He said, let's see how you're feeling in 2 months. I felt fine, or rather, I felt what I had come to understand as fine. 6 months after surgery, January of 2002, I saw the note in my chart. Dr. Carver had escalated me to 40 milligrams twice daily. I remembered the visit, but not the escalation. I had gone in reporting the original dose seemed less effective, that pain was returning in the afternoons, and apparently, I have gone back over my planner, I had asked for this. I asked for more. I didn't register it as significant. The pain was real. The research said it was safe. Upward titration. I was a health economist. This was standard pharmaceutical management. I wrote in my planner, 40 milligrams 2 times daily, back pain still present, appropriate AG, appropriate adjustment. 12 years later, I found that planner in a box from my office. I stood in this room and read that notation for a long time. During the 9 months of supervised withdrawal, I had a lot of time to think. Withdrawal from 240 milligrams of OxyContin daily at 62 is not something that allows for distraction. I spent my career analyzing the fine print. That was the precise description of my job at the Federal Reserve, finding what was buried in pharmaceutical policy language, the caveats, the methodology footnotes that changed what the headline number actually meant. I was excellent at it, and Purdue Pharma was the only company in 30 years that successfully buried something from me. Not because they hid it differently, they hid it the same way every other pharmaceutical company hid things I'd found before, in the provenance of the data, in the distinction between what the evidence showed and what the summary claimed it showed. Except this time, the thing they were hiding was about me specifically, and that is the one place where the analytical brain stops working, not because it can't process the data, because it does not want to. What Purdue Pharma's marketing team understood in 1996 is that intelligent people do not believe they can be fooled. The intelligence is not the protection. The intelligence is the door. I have a PhD from Cornell. I analyzed pharmaceutical policy for 31 years. I was the person other people asked when they needed to know if they could trust what a drug company was telling them. And for 12 years I trusted what Purdue Pharma was telling me through Dr. Philip Carver's mouth. The fine print they never gave me was this: the exit is worse than the entrance. The escalation continued. By the summer of 2003, 18 months post-surgery, I was at 80 milligrams twice daily. I remember this because I remember the color of the pills changing. The 20 milligram tablets were blue, the 40 milligrams were yellow, the 80 milligrams were green. I remember noticing the green and thinking, the colors are convenient. They'd designed a system that makes it easy to track dosage changes. How thoughtful. That is genuinely what I thought. I had by then submitted the last chapter of the Princeton University Press book. The acknowledgements thanked Dr. Philip Carver for making completion of this manuscript possible. I meant it. I thought I was describing his surgical skill and good post-operative management. What I was describing was 160 milligrams of oxycodone hydrochloride daily. The precision started going in 2004. It was not sudden, granular, statistical, the way you detect drift in a financial data set. Not one wrong number, but a pattern of small deviations that, in aggregate, indicate something has shifted in the underlying system. I had been known for holding multiple complex variables in analytical parallel. I could sit in a seminar room, track 6 intersecting arguments, synthesize them into a single response that acknowledged all 6. In 2004, the graduate students started coming less often. Then, in February 2005, I sat down to review a dissertation chapter, Yael Barkan, 27, Rural Pharmaceutical Access Disparities, and I realized I had read the same paragraph 4 times. Not because it was unclear, because it had entered my short-term memory and not transferred. I closed the document. I opened it again and started over. I told myself I was tired. I did not mention it to Dr. Carver. June of 2005. The Federal Reserve Bank of Boston did not renew my consulting contract. My liaison, William Forsyth, who had worked with me since 1994, called personally. He said priorities had shifted toward different expertise. He was precise with his language in the way careful people are when they are telling you something they don't want you to hear directly. I said, "William, is this about my performance?" There was a pause that lasted approximately 3 seconds. He said, "Maggie, we have valued your partnership enormously over 11 years. That was the answer. I sat at my desk afterward and thought, this is a methodology problem. I need to recalibrate my outputs. I made a list. I did not consider that the problem might be the 160 milligrams I was taking every day. Patricia came in April of 2009, my sister. She's 3 years younger, 63 now, retired after 31 years as an ER nurse in Burlington. She came to spend a long weekend. She brought wine and the kind of food you bring when you're worried about someone. Good cheese, soup she'd made, things that keep without refrigerating. Saturday morning, I was making tea in the kitchen. The OxyContin was in the cabinet above the stove. The 80 milligrams tablets, green, 3 times daily by then, 240 milligrams a day. I had been at 240 milligrams since approximately 2007. I was obtaining the prescription from 2 physicians simultaneously, Dr. Carver still, and a pain management clinic in Stowe I'd started seeing in 2005. I reached for the cabinet to get the pill bottle. My hand was shaking. Not severely, not the visible tremor I have now. Just enough. Just enough that the child-proof cap defeated me for a moment. Patricia was standing in the kitchen doorway watching. She said, "Maggie, give me that." Not a question. The voice of a woman who had worked 31 years in an emergency room and knew exactly what she was looking at. I turned around and looked at my sister, and something happened that I cannot fully explain. Some part of me, buried under 3 years of 240 milligrams daily, under the rationalizations, under the methodology lists, and the renewed prescriptions, and the careful management, and the published papers, and the distinguished career. Some part of me, small and very tired and very far down, recognized what was in her face. And I screamed at her. I told her it was a prescription. I told her it was medically managed. I told her Dr. Carver had followed this case for 8 years, and he was an excellent physician, and she was an ER nurse, not an orthopedic specialist, and I would appreciate it if she would let me manage my own health care. I told her to get out of my kitchen. She didn't leave. She sat down at the table and waited. I took my medication. I made the tea. I sat across from her. I don't know how long we sat there before she said, very quietly, "Maggie, how many are you taking per day?" I told her 6. The correct answer at that point was also 6, 3 tablets twice a day. That was what both prescriptions together provided. She said, "And when's the last time you tried to go a day without them?" I said I didn't need to. I said the pain management was ongoing. I said there was no reason to disrupt an established treatment protocol. She said, "You can't open a child-proof cap." I cried that night for 3 hours in the bathroom, not at what she said, at something I hadn't allowed myself to articulate, even internally, until that moment, that I had known for months that something was wrong, that the methodology list was not working, that the recalibration of outputs had not improved anything, that I could not read a dense academic paper for more than 40 minutes without losing the argument, that I, who had spent a career analyzing the fine print, had not read my own fine print. I did not stop then. I want to be honest about this because the narrative form invites a clean arc, and the truth is there is no clean arc. Patricia left on Sunday. I thanked her for coming. I told her I would talk to Dr. Carver about the tremor. I told her I appreciated her concern. She drove back to Burlington. I stayed at 240 milligrams for 4 more years. 2013. The university offered what they called an incentivized early retirement. I had been at the University of Vermont for 33 years. I was hired in 1980. Became associate professor in 1986. Full professor with tenure in 1989. 23 years of tenure. The formal language was restructuring, cost optimization, prioritizing emerging research areas. Standard institutional language that I had spent my career decoding in other institutions' documents. The translation was, "We have noticed. We have been patient. The investigations into the 3 graduate students who complained about cancelled orientations have been pending for 2 years. The department chair is tired of asking. Sign the papers." I signed them on a Tuesday in March. 20 minutes. A notary was present. I gave back my office keys at the front desk. I walked out of Perkins Hall for the last time, down the stone steps, across the central green, to my car, and I did not cry. I had an afternoon prescription to take, and I was late, and the priority of that overrode everything else. I drove home. I took my medication. I had given the university 33 years and 4 months, and I sat in this house in Montpellier and took 6 green tablets and thought, there will be time to think about this later, when things stabilize, when the pain is better managed, when the methodology is recalibrated. There was no later. There was only the medication, and then the next medication, and then the next. October of 2013, I called Dr. Carver's office and asked for a referral to a substance use specialist. I want to say there was a significant moment that precipitated this, a breakthrough, a final bottom that clarified everything. That would make a better story. There wasn't. I think, I am reasonably certain, it was the receipt of my first retirement pension check. I opened the envelope and the amount was correct, and I stood in my kitchen and thought, this is it. This is the rest. And the rest is whatever I am right now at 62, in this house, alone, unable to hold a single variable. I called the office. The receptionist put me through to the nurse. I said, I have been on OxyContin since 2001. I am currently taking 240 milligrams daily from 2 separate prescriptions. I believe I have a dependency problem. I would like a referral." The nurse was quiet for a moment. Then she said she would have Dr. Carver call me back. He called the following day. He was very professional. He said he was glad I had reached out. He gave me the name of an addiction medicine specialist at UVM. He said tapering should be done very carefully and under supervision, and that he was sorry. He was sorry. I have thought about that. Philip Carver said he was sorry. I believed he meant it. I believe he was a physician who had been provided with fraudulent information by a pharmaceutical company that spent more than $400 million over several years training his profession to believe that OxyContin's addiction risk was less than 1%. He trusted his sources. I trusted his sources. We were both in different ways patients of the same lie. In 2007, Purdue Pharma and 3 of its executives pled guilty to federal charges of misbranding. They paid $634 million in penalties. The executives paid personal fines. None of them went to prison. $634 million, 3 executives, no prison time. I spent 9 months in supervised withdrawal, 4 months of which were what the addiction specialist called severe. 47 years of academic vocabulary, and I do not have adequate language for what severe OxyContin withdrawal from 240 milligrams daily looks like at 62 years old. I will tell you that it is not in any Purdue Pharma brochure. It is not mentioned in any continuing medical education material their sales representatives brought to Dr. Carver's office. It is the fine print they never gave me. The exit clause, buried so deeply in the terms and conditions of OxyContin that it might as well not exist. The sequelae are what the withdrawal documents call PAWS, post-acute withdrawal syndrome. The neurological after-effects that persist after acute withdrawal is complete. In my case, chronic insomnia. 5 hours a night, never consecutively. Hypersensitivity to cold. I wear this cardigan at 68 degrees. Residual cognitive deficit. The parallel processing, holding multiple complex variables simultaneously, is impaired. I process in series now, 1 variable at a time. I was a parallel processing system running multiple threads simultaneously. I am now a single-thread sequential processor. Still functional, dramatically less capable. And then there is the hyperalgesia, the cruelest piece of the fine print. Chronic opioid use sensitizes the central nervous system to pain rather than desensitizing it. The mechanism that was supposed to manage pain for 12 years instead trained my nociceptors to amplify pain signals. The lower back pain that began the whole process, the pain that justified the L4-L5 fusion, the pain Dr. Carver's OxyContin was supposed to address, that pain came back, worse than before the surgery. My back hurts right now, sitting on this bed, more than it hurt in August 2001 before the operation. 12 years of it, 60,000 tablets, give or take. The medication that was supposed to fix the problem made the underlying problem worse. That is documented pharmacology. Purdue Pharma knew this was possible. Nobody told Philip Carver. Nobody told me. Claire called last Sunday, my daughter. She's 40. She lives in Portland. She has a son, Theo, who is 8 years old. I have met Theo 3 times. The 3rd time was last June. He is a serious child with his father's coloring and Claire's carefulness. And I watched him at the kitchen table drawing something in a notebook, and I thought, he does not know who I am. Not in the way a child doesn't know a stranger, in the way a child doesn't know someone who was supposed to be in his life and wasn't. Claire and I talk for approximately 20 minutes every month. She is careful with me the way people are careful with something fragile that they've handled roughly before and regret it. She asks about my health. I ask about Theo's school. We do not discuss 2001 through 2013. There is a version of myself that should have been Theo's grandmother, the woman who could have tracked his growth against a methodological framework of academic and social indicators, who could have been present for his first 8 years in ways that mattered, who could have called Claire every week instead of once a month, who could have been in Portland for Theo's birthday this past August. That version of me was dissolved, gradually, precisely, milligram by milligram, by a corporation that knew the fine print and chose not to share it. I still have the prescription pad, not a blank one, the last prescription Dr. Carver wrote for me before the referral. October 14, 2013. OxyContin 80 milligrams, 30 tablets, 3 times daily. I kept it in the pocket of a coat. I found it years later. I don't know why I kept it. I don't know why I still have it in the drawer of this desk under the second volume of my collected papers. Maybe because it looks like nothing, a small rectangle of paper, clinic letterhead, a medication name, a dosage, a number of tablets. Dr. Carver's signature, which is economical and nearly illegible the way physician signatures often are. This piece of paper was worth, on the street, in 2013, in the context of what pills were trading for in Vermont at that point. I did the calculation once. I won't say the number, but I'll tell you this. I spent 31 years analyzing the economics of pharmaceutical policy in rural communities. I published peer-reviewed research on exactly this kind of document, this kind of transaction, this kind of market. I testified at policy hearings. I told the Federal Reserve how rural communities were being economically devastated by prescription drug costs and access disparities. I had this prescription in my pocket the whole time. 6 years. 6 years, 4 months, 11 days. Patricia calls every Sunday. She never mentions it. We talk about her grandchildren. We talk about Vermont politics. We talk about what we're reading. She reads mysteries. I read newspapers. We're incompatible, but we've been managing that incompatibility for 63 years. She came in April of 2009 and she said, "Maggie, give me that." And I screamed at her, and she sat down at that kitchen table and waited. I have never said thank you for that. Not directly. Some things are too large for direct language, or I have been a woman who communicates in data for so long that I've lost access to the language that isn't data. But she knows. I think she knows. The Mont Blanc pen is still in my hand. I've been turning it without realizing. That happens sometimes. My hands move on their own now in ways they didn't before. The tremor isn't severe. You wouldn't notice unless you knew to look. I notice. I used to write with this pen. Papers, books, lecture notes, prescription intake forms in my own hand, documenting the management of my own medication, monitoring my own dependency with the instrument given to me for a book about why pharmaceutical systems fail communities. I have not written a paragraph of academic work since March of 2013. I keep thinking I'll start something. I have notes on healthcare economics and the opioid crisis that no one has written from quite the angle I could write from, the angle of having read those policies, analyzed those companies, and then watched those policies be applied to my own nervous system for 12 years without my comprehending what was happening. That would be a paper worth writing. The economist who missed the fine print on herself. I pick up the pen. I set it down. I look at the boxes of books and papers stacked against the wall of this room that was supposed to be Theo's room, the guest room, the room where the work used to be. 6 years, 4 months, 11 days, and I still can't decide what to call it.